Hello again, everyone. So today is going to be the first video in a series of relationships. I want to focus on relationship for this next series. I'm seeing a lot more clients now with relationship breakdowns and with relationship issues, and I thought it would be a good subject to touch because it seems to be one of the main issues why people are coming to see me. So I thought I'd just share some of this knowledge on how you can start to work on your relationships and move forward with some more inner peace around yourself, around your partner, around the sort of life that you choose to live, and so forth. So I'll get started straight into it. So once again, I have my trusted whiteboard here. I'm just going to shift over a bit. Here we go. So before we can obviously get started, we need to understand why relationships break down in the first place. Okay. So before I actually get into that, there is a quick note that I want to let everybody know, and that is that conflict and tension is actually very normal in relationships. It's precisely because of tension and conflict that relationships can grow and evolve. If everything was peaceful all the time, relationships would become stagnant, they would become boring, and ultimately they would fail. So we do need a level of healthy tension in a relationship, just like with anything in life, in order to grow. So the main reason why relationships start to break down is because communication breaks down. This is fundamentally the most important number one reason why relationships break down. Everything else stems from lack of communication. Okay? So what happens? All of the sudden, and this is something that I see with a lot of my clients, there's an expectation that your partner can read your mind. Which means that if you say something, they should automatically know what you mean. They should automatically know how to respond. And if they're not responding the way you expect them to respond, then they simply don't know who you are anymore. Okay? So this is something that I have started seeing a common theme with a lot of my clients, especially clients that have been together for many, many years. There's an expectation that that your partner should now know you well enough that you don't need to tell them every single thing, and they should know how to respond. They should know how to treat you and all that sort of stuff. Okay? I'm going to tell you that that is actually very false. Okay, and there's a very good reason for that, which I'm going to touch on a bit later. But for some reason, we don't feel like we need to communicate as much the longer the relationship becomes. So communication breakdown is the number one reason why relationships fail, or at least break down. Okay. Loss of trust comes in at number 2. So this is it's really in no particular order, but it kind of is at the same time. So we'll just kind of go with the flow on this one. So loss of trust. Okay, so this can include being lied to, infidelity or cheating, unrealistic expectations that haven't been met, or even realistic expectations that haven't been met. So loss of trust, or it might be that you thought you knew someone in a certain way, yet they do something different to what you expect. Okay. Number 3 is lack of respect. Now, this is lack of respect for your partner, but also lack of respect for yourself. Okay. So something might happen in your life that actually has nothing to do with your relationship. It might be work related. It might be a relationship with it might be an issue that happened with a friend or something outside of the realm of your relationship that has affected you so much that you start losing respect for yourself, and that impacts on your relationship. Lack of respect for your partner. Your partner may start acting differently, may start doing things that very well may be undermining you, undermining the relationship for whatever reason, and you start to lose respect for them. Priorities change, okay? Now this is a common one, and this one actually ties into number 6 with children. So priorities do change in relationships. Very, very, very normal actually for priorities to change, just like in life. We know when in anything, in any part of our life, we have certain priorities at this point in time which can change as we learn new experiences, as we go through life. And relationships is exactly the same. Priorities change in the relationships. Now sometimes those priorities don't align with what we want. As an individual, that is. So, for example, there might be an expectation, for example, that, you want to buy a house together. But then something happens and the priorities of one person is no longer to buy a house. They might want to use that money elsewhere. But the other partner is of the thought, no, we agreed to buy a house. So now there's starting to become a conflict of a conflict revolving around priorities in the relationship. Children is another example. There might be two partners, and just to be clear, in relationships here, it doesn't really matter whether it's gay or straight. But I am strictly talking about monogamous relationships. I'm not speaking about polyamorous relationships, so with multiple partners, although a lot of this can also be applied to those sorts of relationships as well. Okay, but just for simplicity, I'm sticking with what's more common in Western culture, which is 2 partners in a relationship. Okay, so your priorities change. Okay, you change. Number 5. We are also individuals. Okay? And you change as you go through life. And when you change, that impacts on your relationship. And you and your partner very well may change in different directions, which starts to cause friction. Or, once again, a change in priorities, which can lead to breakdown. Finally, well, at least on this list, there are a multitude of other reasons which I'm not getting into. Children. Okay? When children come into your relationship, your priorities shift massively. Okay? Your focus shifts from that of your partner and yourself to the children. Okay? And a lot of the time, especially for women who go who can go through the blues after having children, which means that they can go through depression. Men go through the same thing as well, although in our culture it's less seen that men go through the baby blues as much as women, but it's very real for both. Okay? And that can cause tension between the two. It can cause bottled up emotions because you're focusing on your child, that you stop focusing on yourself and your own well-being. Also, when it comes to children, your purpose changes. Okay? This is something that I am noticing, especially with women, is that for the first as their children are growing up, their sole purpose is to provide for the children, make sure that the children have everything they need. And once the children are old enough to look after themselves, in particular the mothers, sometimes the fathers, or the one partner over another partner, if it's a same-sex marriage. They have no purpose in life because they haven't planned for a life outside of children. Okay, and that can have an effect on the relationship. Okay, so children can be a reason for relationship breakdowns. Okay, that's not to say don't have children, but it's important to plan for success. Okay, so plan together for your children, but also have a plan for when your children start growing up. Okay. So, in terms of when a relationship does start to break down, I'm just going to shift over here so that you can see that. What are some things that you can do to help strengthen your relationship? Okay. So, the first tool that I generally give to clients is what I call the talking stick. Now, in my office, I have texters, obviously, because I use a whiteboard. So I normally give a client, one of the partners, a texter, and the rule. But you can use whatever you want. Ideally, get something that's sentimental for both of you. Okay, so I've had clients, for example, who, when they've done this exercise at home, have used photos of their children, or have used something that they value, that's of value to both of them. Okay, which is very, very important when you're doing this exercise. Okay, because you want to respect the stick. You want to respect the talking stick. Okay. So the way this works is the person with the object. I should really call it a talking object more than a talking stick. Oh well. So the person with the object talks, okay? And they don't even have to talk, but they have the right to talk, even if they want to sit in silence, okay? And this is great because what it means is that they now have the opportunity to talk without being interrupted, because the person who's not holding the talking object cannot talk. They must listen. They cannot be looking at the time. They must actively listen and really try and understand what the person with the object is trying to say. Okay, that's crucial for this exercise to work because it's allowing you to put yourself in their shoes and understand things from their point of view. Okay, so the person with the object talks. They say whatever's on their mind. They can take their time. They can even sit in silence. Sometimes people need to think a little bit longer before the words that they want to communicate come out of their mouth. And that's perfectly fine. Some people, it's very easy to flow and they talk very, very quickly and very easily. But what this talking object does is it allows the flow of the conversation to happen such that one person only ever talks and one person only ever listens at a time. This allows for a clearer and less hostile form of communication. What you'll also find is that there's less yelling and screaming because you don't need to talk over anybody. You're being heard. When you're being heard, it's easier to communicate. Now, if you do find that someone is talking longer than the other person, you can set a timer. 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, set a timer. But what I suggest is do this exercise at least once or twice a week together for between 45 minutes to an hour. Set aside time for this exercise where you have an object, the talking object exercise, and if something has been eating you up, if there has been something that you've wanted to say that you haven't had a chance, this is your opportunity. Remember that your partner is not a telepath. They cannot read your mind. You must tell them with your words what's on your mind. And this time allows you to do that. Understand that you and your partner are not the same people as when you first met. Okay? So, as individuals, we are all evolving with our experiences with life. And even though you're in a relationship with someone, you are still evolving as an individual. Your partner and you are not the same people as you are when you first met. Your interests may change. Your energy changes. The way you see life can change. Unfortunately, there is an expectation in our relationship that the person should be the way they are when we first met them, which is simply impossible. That person is dead. They no longer exist. The person that exists is the person that is in front of you right now. So a good way to start to mend your relationship when things start to shift is to engage your sense of curiosity about who your partner is now. Learn about them. When you first met your partner, you were curious about them. You asked them questions. What are your interests? What do you enjoy doing? Do you like this sort of music? Re-engage that sense of curiosity now. Who are they now? Who are you now? Engage your own sense of curiosity about you. How do you relate to them now? How do they relate to you? This isn't about trying to change someone to suit who you are. It's about adapting to how each other are changing, to how you're both changing. Because change is inevitable. Change is needed. This is how we grow. This is how we grow in relationships. This is how we grow as individuals. So remember that you and your partner are not the same people as when you first met, and engage your sense of curiosity about who your partner is now and who you are now. Finally, focus on yourself. In the next video, I'm going to talk about a relationship model which actually seems to shock a lot of people, or at least they don't really see relationships with that sort of model. I'm not going to spoil it now. I think my relationship clients will know what I'm talking about, and when they see the model, they'll go, yeah, I knew that was coming. But the fundamental part of that model is to focus on yourself. Okay? Remember that when you first met your partner, you were you. More often than not, you were single. You were most likely focusing on yourself, which means that you were probably quite confident. You probably had a reasonably healthy self-esteem because you were focusing on yourself and you were doing activities that you enjoyed. When you're in a relationship, sometimes that focus shifts to your partner or to the relationship at the detriment of yourself. And this is where resentment can come in. And this victim mentality of I'm sacrificing things about me so that the relationship can be healthy, which is actually quite a detrimental thought process which can lead to relationship breakdowns. Because remember, you are the relationship and your partner is the relationship. Focus on yourself. Give yourself permission to do things that you enjoy. Give yourself and your partner permission to be individuals as well as be in a relationship. When you focus on yourself, you generally become happier. You generally become more at peace within yourself. for those of you with busy lifestyles and children and so forth, come up with a plan so that you can give each other, as individuals, time to focus on yourself. And that focus can be, you might enjoy playing sport, re-engaging in a team sport. You might enjoy gardening. You might enjoy just sitting in silence, going for bushwalks. You might enjoy whatever it is. You might enjoy just taking yourself to the cinema and watching a good movie with some popcorn and a Coke. Whatever it is. Make sure you have time to focus on yourself. Because when you focus on yourself, you come back into that place of who you are. You become centered again. And when you become centered again, you're in a better position to strengthen your relationship. You're in a better position to be the great mother or father that you want to be. I'm just going to put this back now. So, remember folks that relationships, as I said before, conflict is needed. We need to have conflict. We need the tension in any relationship because it forces us to grow the relationship. It forces us to grow as individuals. Without tension, without relationships, as I said, they would become stagnant and boring and would end up failing. Okay? So when conflict happens, when breakdowns happen, if you want to pursue the relationship, look at these conflicts as an opportunity to strengthen the relationship. Ask yourself, how am I contributing to this conflict? How is my partner contributing to this conflict? And how can we work together? What can we learn about ourselves to move beyond this conflict, to move beyond this breakdown? And as a shock as this may sound, sometimes that might mean spending some time apart to focus on yourself. And there is nothing wrong with that. Okay? Because sometimes it's a sense of identity. When you identify too much in a relationship and too much of your role in a relationship, as I said, you can neglect yourself. And it's so important to center yourself. It's so important to refocus your energy on who you are. Because when you start to refocus on who you are, then you can bring that back into the relationship. So there is nothing wrong with having a little break every now and then. Okay? As I said, in my next video, I'm going to be presenting a model which I'll expand further on this. But in the meantime, I hope that you find this beneficial. And if you do, please feel free to reach out, write a comment, get in contact with me if you have any other questions. You can go to my website, alexrodriguez.com.au, book an appointment. If you find this content useful, please like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Bye.